Now, primarily what we're talking about in this entire series on how to sell at prices higher than your competitors will have to do with gross margin. Let me make this pontifical statement to you. Business is a game of margins. It is not a game of volume. Unfortunately, most businesses and most people running businesses seem to think that volume is the key to success. That throws back to the old idea, well, we can cut price and we can make it up in volume. Well, I not only can, I will prove to you that you can cut price and make it up in volume. That can be done. But the volume that you have to attain may be so great that there's no possible way that, practically speaking, you're going to do it. Now, let's talk about gross margin, because that's part of what we're going to move into about how do you sell at prices higher than your competitors. How do you calculate gross margin in a business? Well, let me use a different colored pen here, and perhaps I should really use the blue. You take your sales, let's say $100, 100%, and you subtract from your sales your cost of goods sold. If you're a manufacturer, that is the cost of actually producing the product that you're selling. If you're a wholesaler, distributor, retailer, those are the costs that you incur by purchasing the product that you're going to resell as a retailer or resell as a wholesaler or distributor. If you're in the construction industry, it will have to do with your construction costs and what have you. Let's say that your cost of goods sold are 60% of your selling price. That leaves you what is called gross margin. In this case, it would be $40, 40%. That's simple. Most businesses, most manufacturers, margins run in the typically 25 to 35% range, but they'll get up 40, 50, even higher than that. Retailers, depends upon what they're selling. In a grocery store, for example, they have very low gross margins. In a jewelry store, they have very high gross margins. And incidentally, this is a key for you to remember throughout this, not only entirety of this presentation, but also the rest of your life when you're involved in trying to run a business and sell things at profitable levels. Normally, in any business, the easier it is to sell the product or service that you're selling, the lower the margin. The harder it is to sell, the higher the margin. For example, I said a retail jewelry store tends to have a very high margin. It's difficult to sell a $100,000 diamond, for example. Not everybody has a spare $100,000 laying around that they want to spend on a diamond. So you don't have very many prospects, and then you got to find the prospects, and it's harder to sell $100,000 diamonds than it is a can of beans or a can of peas. Most everybody wants to eat about every day. It's easy to sell food, very easy to sell food, but as a consequence, more people try to sell food because it's easier to do than try to sell $100,000 diamonds. Trouble is then you will have a lot more competition, and what will happen to you at that particular point, somebody will decide that they're a little smarter than you are, and they can offer their beans at a little lower price than you're offering yours, but that'll be all right. They'll cut price and they'll make it up in volume. But down goes the margin. Now, gross margin goes down in a variety of ways. One way for gross margin to go down is simply because to sell something, you cut your price. For example, let's say that you decide, because you need to sell something, we'll cut the price. You lower the price, you'll probably sell more. You cut your price from $100 to $95. But your cost of goods sold are still going to be $60 because you're selling the same thing. Your cost of goods sold didn't go down. That will give you a gross margin of $35, but it is not the 40% that you had before, or the $40. Clearly, by cutting your price, your gross margin goes down. 35 as a percentage of 95 is a little more than 35%, but it's not close to the 40% that you had to begin with. Clearly, if you cut your price to sell something, your gross margin will go down. The second way that gross margin will go down is, let's say you're a tough guy. When you tell someone it's $100, it's $100. You're going to get $100. But your cost of goods sold went up to $65. If you're a manufacturer, your costs went up. Utility costs went up, materials costs went up, had to give pay raise to your production employees. There's all kinds of costs that can go up, but your sales price didn't go up. You've now got $35 and percent because it's actually a 35% of the 100. So the first way that margins go down is you cut your price. The second way is you don't cut your price, but your costs go up. Now, the third way that your gross margin will go down, let's say you're a tough guy. Your costs go up $5 from 60 to 65. You don't fool around. You were charging 100 when your costs were 60. Your costs went up $5. By gollies, you raised your price $5 to 105. You've still got $40 in gross margin, but you don't have the 40%. 40 as a percent of 105 is not 40% like 40 is as a percentage of 100. So there are three conditions that will prevail when gross margins begin to go down. Frankly, what this whole program is about is how to avoid declining gross margin. Let me make a pretty strong statement here that particularly if you're an owner of a business or an investor or a shareholder in a business, you best remember. If your gross margin gets below industry average in your business, for those in your industry, for a couple of years, and you don't get that gross margin turned around in a couple more years, almost assuredly you'll either get to know a bankruptcy judge on a first name basis, or you will decide, we got to get out of this business. We're not making any money. We're losing our shirts. Let's dump this puppy. And that's when businesses either fold up or they're sold out or what happens to them.